There are a lot of heroes who are capable of traveling through time or to alternate realities or dimensions. But if there's one thing science fiction has taught us about time travel, even if you have the best of intentions, everything you do usually has consequences. A lot of them unexpected and a lot of them bad. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. This is Top 10 Nerd and I am your host Amanda McKnight. Join me as we take a look at some of these disastrous moments from comic book history and count down the top 10 futuristic superheroes who ruined the past. Sometimes their past, sometimes somebody else's. Number 10. Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan is not very good at people. Case in point when he altered Superman's family history by rescuing Jor-El from planet Krypton, just as it was exploding apart. Dr. Manhattan ended up doing this in an attempt to better understand Superman's seemingly natural sense of goodness. However, rescuing Jor-El at this crucial moment and then setting him up to have him watch and observe his son's life only made Jor-El go insane, especially as he'd already been resigned to die alongside his family left on Krypton. Jor-El living didn't give us the happiest of endings as he became the mysterious, complicated, sometimes heroic, sometimes villainous Mr. Oz. And while this might not seem so disastrous to us, the readers, I'm sure from Jor-El's perspective, learning about all of the cruelty of humankind throughout the years was pretty shocking and heartbreaking. Number 9. Cable. Cable messed up his past by killing his own future. Yep, he messed up not just the past, but his own past and his future. He just messed it all up. But also he kinda weirdly neatly ended up closing off his time loop at the same time. Does that make sense? Basically, when old Cable died, it was at the hands of his younger self, young Cable, who had come to end his life. Old Cable of course knew that this was coming and inevitable because he was once his younger self who had killed his older self. It sounds more confusing than it is, I think. In killing his older self, young Cable would later reflect and wonder if in doing so, he'd actually made a big mistake. But the cool thing about Cable is that because he's usually a time traveler, he's never really gone. Like Doctor Who, there are many different points in his timeline we haven't yet seen, so he can always still return and pop up still alive, but at a different point in his timeline that we simply haven't seen yet. And there may have even been a simpler way to fix the problem of old Cable's death than most of us probably thought of, but you'll get no spoilers from me on that matter. Check out the Cable series if you want to learn more about this timey-wimey mutant stuff and how it all goes down. But also just check it out because it's an amazing series. And friends, before I move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn more about time-traveling, futuristic superheroes, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. The Teen Titans. The Teen Titans end up learning the hard way how even trying to help save the future can end up ruining your own future, but in the past. Time travel stuff. It's confusing. In Titans Tomorrow, the Teen Titans accidentally create an alternate timeline when they travel to the 31st century to help the Legion of Superheroes beat the Fatal 500. On their way back to their own timeline, they accidentally end up 10 years into their own futures from whence they left, only to learn that this past and their future has been dramatically changed. The older versions of themselves they meet are villainous and tyrannical in nature, becoming known as one of the factions of the Titans, Titans West. And in this reality, Titans West are the villains of the story in comparison to the opposing faction, Titans East. We're basically like the heroic Titans. But none of the Titans that are the main characters are on that group. They're all evil. Oh no. Number 7. Moira Mactaggert. Moira isn't really a time-traveling hero, but she still is futuristic in the sense that she has lived through multiple alternate futures. During Dawn of X, we learn that Moira is in fact a mutant whose powers are that of reincarnation, but not as in she dies and just springs back to life. More in the sense that she dies and is reborn, repeating her life again from birth. Because of this, Moira has a lot of experience when it comes to fighting for mutant rights, and she is seen in being a key player in the mutants and humanity's repeated downfall. In fact, it seems as though almost every single one of her lives has had a worse outcome than the one previous to it. Well, except for the one that she's currently living, so far. Moira is currently on her 10th life, which seems to be going much better in comparison. With this life taking place in the 616 reality, it seems as though Moira with the mutants may have actually succeeded in creating a future where they will all get to thrive. However, it should be noted that Moira is in her 10th life, An important one, since Destiny once threatened Moira and using her own powers warned Moira that her life would not be quite so infinite as she thought, seeing roughly only 10 lives total for her to live through. Maybe 11 if Moira plays her cards right. So this could be Moira's last one. But how will it end? Number 6. The Flash. There are multiple Flashes that have attempted to mess with time or reality, and as you can expect, it never goes well. Wally West's attempt was no exception, although at least he just barely managed to avoid disastrous results. But this one was a close call with a lot at stake, and so for that reason, I'm gonna count it. This all went down when he, Wally, learned in New 52 of the kids that he'd had in the previous continuity who had been lost. He was willing to race through time in order to save them as fast as he could, but it turned out this was all a manipulation of Hunter Zolomon's. Snap. Wally West almost destroyed the Speed Force and Hypertime in the process, but managed to avoid doing so when he learned that it was all a trick. Although he wouldn't rescue his kids this time around, Wally would later be reunited with them, and they're actually back in the continuity now, where Wally gets to resume a much more happy ending focused version of his own story. Yay! Number 5. Iron Man. While we might know Iron Man as a hero who helped to work out the kinks in time travel to set everything right in the MCU, in the comics there was one major time where he kinda ended up doing just the opposite. Of course, this didn't happen in the main continuity, but in the What If story, what if Iron Man was trapped in the time of King Arthur, from issue 33 of the original What If series. Iron Man had traveled back in time with Doctor Doom before, but in this reality, instead of also returning back to the present day, he gets stuck there when Doom abandons him, traveling back without Iron Man. How rude. Not only is that going to likely be a problem back in the present day, but Tony remaining in the past ultimately results in the death of King Arthur. Without having an heir, Arthur, with his dying breath, passes the throne on to Tony. Sounds like history is going to end up being more than a little wonky as a result of this whole kerfuffle. Number 4. Iron Lad. Iron Lad messed up by becoming Kang, I guess, and then of course going back in time and causing a lot of other problems for people in the past under various different identities that Kang has had throughout time. Iron Lad initially swore to not become Kang when he realized that this was his destiny, but over time he would come to team up with his older future selves. In fact, Kang, future Iron Lad himself, is the one to blame for Kang, it turns out, as in the newest series about the villain, we'll learn about how Kang ends up sort of training Iron Lad to become one of the best conquerors and villains that the Marvel Universe has ever seen. Granted, of course, Iron Lad doesn't really want to become Kang still, but if you can't beat him, join him, you know? Number 3. Legion. Legion messed things up pretty epically for the X-Men and the whole world when he messed with time, and I know what you're thinking. Is Legion really a superhero, Amanda? Usually I would say that David Haller is more complex than that, or tends to lean more villain, I would even admit. But lately in the comics he's definitely been playing the role of hero, with him joining Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler, in an attempt to build a mutant religion to unite all who live on Krakoa and Arakko, which is now technically also terraformed Mars. Over in another alternate reality, Legion ended up traveling back in time in an attempt to take out Magneto, all in all with heroic intentions really. However, Legion accidentally ends up killing Professor Charles Xavier, his father, instead. Xavier dies, which then not only prompts Apocalypse to attack 10 years sooner, creating the Age of Apocalypse reality, but this also causes Legion to disappear. You see, he killed Xavier before David was ever born, meaning that Legion therefore no longer existed. Time travel. Don't do it. Are you thinking about it? Don't do it. Number 2. The Flash. This time around we're talking about Barry Allen's The Flash. The Flash is obviously one of the most well-known heroes to have messed with the timeline and learned from his actions. Whether we're talking comics, animated, or live action, we've seen Barry Allen mess up time in pretty much every medium. Barry goes back in time in an effort to save his mom Nora after he learns that Eobard Thawne, his nemesis, Reverse Flash, was actually the one responsible for her death. Gasp. Barry manages to save her, but quickly learns why you don't travel back in time to do that kind of thing. His choice messes with all of reality, creating a flashpoint paradox and severely messing up the lives of all of his friends and colleagues in the future. In order to fix the problem he has caused, he must go back in time to fix the past by stopping himself from ever going to save his mom. And he wasn't even really able to fix the problem quite so simply. He messed things up so bad that even in setting things straight, he actually shook up the entire DC universe, ultimately resetting the continuity and creating New 52. Number 1. Booster Gold. Booster Gold has ruined the past a few times before in the comics, though I think one of the craziest mess-ups I've ever seen is when he tried to do something nice for Bruce in honor of his impending marriage to Catwoman as a wedding present. Oh, how nice. Booster Gold planned to travel back in time and save Batman's parents on that fateful night so that they could attend his wedding and Bruce could be happy. Unfortunately, doing stuff like that completely messed with the timeline in the worst kind of ways, as Booster would learn. In saving Bruce's parents, he created an alternate reality. Despite Bruce being happy there with his family, it also put Bruce at odds with Selina. She ended up being imprisoned in Arkham in this reality, losing her mind, and hating the Waynes for basically closing the orphanage and putting her in Arkham Asylum. Booster attempts to remind Batman and Catwoman in this alternate reality how much they love each other, but instead their meetup kinda just results in a whole lot of death. When he goes back in time to try and stop himself from ever saving Batman's parents, knowing what kind of mayhem it causes in that alternate future, Bruce from the alternate timeline goes with him to make sure he isn't able to stop his past self from saving the Waynes. Ha ha ha. However, future Booster does succeed, causing alternate Bruce in grief to take his own life. It's all pretty awful. Everything gets fixed in terms of the timeline, but Booster definitely bears emotional scars from this whole experience. To be honest, Booster probably has a lot of trauma from time travel experiences. If you want to check out this story for yourself, you can read how it all unfolds in Tom King's Batman run during the Gift story arc, which starts in issue 45. 45 to 47, I think. I think it's a 3-parter. What have been some of your favorite time travel adventures? Which time travel shenanigans did you most expect to end in disaster? Which time traveling superheroes do you think are the most destructive? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. Thank you so much for watching and traveling through time with me. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.